for content authenticity, which is called C2PA. Google, Adobe, a lot of these different big players have now adopted these standards. So we are really good at physical vision. I'm not as sure as we are that good at digital vision. Today's AI can do a lot. I think the damage can be much worse, right? We all saw that from the Grok AI example, where early in January it was being used to undress people online, right? So
AI, is it hype or help? G'day and welcome to the show. I'm your host Pete Cooper and our topic is AI, hype or help. Today's guest is Aparna Bharati. She is a PhD in AI, machine learning and vision systems, a very important topic in today's world as we're seeing so many quick advancements in this field. It also happens to be a field that I share a common interest in, and Aparna and I actually work together on a project. So this is going to be a deep dive into AI vision systems and machine learning. So let's get into it. Welcome, Aparna. Welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
thank you so much. Thank you for the invitation.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to this one, Aparna, because we work together on some AI vision technology. And I wanted to share that with our guests and get them to know a little bit about what we're doing, what AI vision is and what it's about, and importantly, what you bring to the table, which is a lot. So, Aparna, why don't you start with a little bit of your background and what you do in AI vision?
Yeah, so I am an assistant professor at Lehigh right now, and my research interests are in the areas of computer vision, machine learning, and AI. And I develop technology that is generally related to learning from visual data, right? So wherever we have problems that involves images and videos and maybe some metadata associated with it, we try to build those models using that type of modality to solve various different problems, right? So it could be problems ranging from visual recognition to scene understanding to fighting misinformation, etc. So I think there is definitely quite a lot of interests that I have in also security related applications
Mm,
where we want to, think about how do we protect really high value media assets, right? So whether it is with watermarks or with other kinds of technology, how do we ensure some sort of traceability
mm.
when original data and real human generated data is being used in the training of these AI models and things like that.
Very hot
So,
topic, Aparna, isn't it? I mean, I think everyone who listens to this podcast would be aware that AI can generate some pretty convincing image data,
yes.
and it's only going to get more and more convincing, which
Yes, I
opens
think
up
it
the
is,
possibility
yeah.
for misinformation, right?
Yes, I think it is already there.
Mm.
So I think a lot of it is like, so obviously that depends on the prompt and what do you intend to generate. But these models have gotten really good in their quality of generation, and they seem to be getting even better. So there
Mm.
is a lot of motivation to detect some of these generated images
Yes,
and videos, and also analyze things further about how much
yes,
of original content do they copy and things like
yes.
that. So yeah.
So if I go back even just 12 months,
Mm.
I was looking at this classic video of the guy eating spaghetti, and it just doesn't look right. Will Smith, yeah, eating
Mhm.
spaghetti. If
Mm.
you look it up, it's him eating spaghetti, but it's all auto-generated, but it's a mess and things are just going all over the place. It's totally weird. Now the latest ones are almost to the point where you can't tell that it's AI generated. It really looks like Will Smith eating spaghetti.
Yes, and I think a lot of it has to also be about context, right? So how realistic is it for, Will Smith to be posting a video of him eating spaghetti, right? So there's a lot of
Yes.
that is not just captured in the image or the video, but, for a human viewer who is looking at it, they might have a lot more context from just, knowing things historically or anecdotally and things
Mm,
like that. So,
mm,
so those are the ones that are really hard to capture in this process of fighting misinformation,
mm.
right? So we can look at pixel level artifacts, and we can look at, generation information of these media objects, and but the interaction with the human viewer is where there are a lot of interesting research questions.
Uh,
Yes.
Pixel, what did you call it? Pixel level, say that again.
Artifacts. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Pixel level
Pixel level
artifacts.
artifacts,
So
yes.
that sounds very interesting. Tell me a bit more about that.
Yeah, so as we know that images are represented as a matrix of numbers in a computer's memory, and so these numbers have statistical patterns, right?
Mm,
Some of it is obviously from when you take the picture from the camera, and then
mm,
you have these kind of photons then converted into electrons.
mm,
You record that charge in the form of a number, right, which
mm-hmm,
is then stored on the your SD card or whatever
mm-hmm,
memory device you have.
mm-hmm,
So in that process of image acquisition, of when we are taking a picture, there are different parts of that cycle, right, that have some level of quantization, or there is some sort of sensor noise, because not all manufactured sensors will behave, in a specific way, or behave the same way, right? So each one
Right,
of them behaves distinctly.
right.
So there are statistical methods to extract such patterns. So we know that if there is an image that has been acquired by the camera, it
Mm,
is going to have those underlying noise
mm.
patterns, right?
Fascinating.
Whereas if there is an image or a video that has been generated, while it might look like the scene kind of makes sense, it may not have some of those underlying details.
Oh,
Yes.
amazing. So I worked in cameras. I think we've discussed this way back in the 90s when people used to say, why would you want to have a camera in a cell phone? Because they felt that it wasn't necessary. But
Mm,
now we have multiple cameras. I think mine has four, maybe five cameras, my phone.
mm,
Cameras everywhere. Um, so I got quite deep into the technology
mm,
around, trying to get the most out of these very early sensors. A lot of it's been overcome because of just the noise is buried in just so many pixels you don't see it. It's not so big, but also
mhm,
they've constantly improved the pixel capabilities. I mean, at the
mhm,
end of the day, the photon of light goes in and hits the pixel and
mhm,
creates a bit of charge, which is
mm,
then turned into a voltage.
mm,
And that isn't perfect, as you said, and there's a little bit of noise already in every system, and
mhm.
particularly in this, and it has certain characteristics which um, prove, in a way, that it came from a real sensor and even a particular manufacturer's sensor.
Sensors. Yes, yes. I think that is very well captured about the process of, image acquisition through
Mm,
a camera.
mm,
Whereas now, I think there is to some level you can replicate some of these noise patterns when we try to use modern AI generators to
mm,
generate images and videos. But it is not always the case, right? Because you are trying to now replicate not just the scene composition through just, a sentence or a prompt.
mm,
Now you have to specify, quite a few number of constraints to make sure that you get a realistic looking image that is, maybe physically consistent with the knowledge of the world that the viewer
mm,
has,
mm.
in addition to having these really, small and pixel level statistical fingerprints. So this is making the task of the generator very difficult.
Right.
So, the the chances of them, failing at one of these constraints is now higher. So I think even though people say, oh, we can easily, model the generator to replicate these things, then we know that, this is
Mm.
us trying to make the task of the generator harder. Yep.
There's a classic arms race between those that want to,
Mhm.
I guess, generate the images to make it look realistic, the real world, like those that want to capture the real world. Are the sensor manufacturers, being proactive with that, trying to help us ensure that we're getting real images with those techniques?
Yes. So I think the industry is very, aware of these problems. And I think it was Qualcomm that started kind of in some way watermarking a bunch of their images, right? So in whatever phones that use their specific processor, you're going to have some level of traceability, right? That this came from this specific device. So they do it like, from the get-go.
Mm,
So that is there. There are a bunch of industry members that have come together, and they have formed this kind of coalition for content authenticity, which is called C2PA,
mm,
right? So I think Google, Adobe, a lot of these different big players have now adopted these standards, and they want, like, the media that is theirs, right, or is being
mm.
created through their software or tool, has this level of protection in some way.
So
Yeah.
when you say a watermark, I think most people would see that as a something that's sort of visible, but not highly visible. So if you take a sheet of paper, you see the printer text, and you can see behind a background, which is the watermark. We don't want that in an image. You don't want it visible. So it's an invisible watermark,
Yes, yes.
right?
So I think most of these are invisible watermarks. So think of it as kind of digital signatures that are embedded in the image, but are not perceptible to the human eye. Yeah.
Mm. Well, that's really fascinating. And I think it gives me some comfort that there is some way to try and thwart those that are trying to fool us, right? And I don't think anybody wants to be fooled. And I guess I was looking at something literally only yesterday about these big tower cranes on construction sites that were collapsing, and some of them looked not real to me. And I was just really trying to figure out why it didn't look real. Or my sense was there, but it took me quite a while to realize specifically what it was that was jarring me. And at the end of it, I still wasn't sure whether it was auto-generated or it was just a bit of motion blur, because of course things that move quickly in an image create a kind of blurring, streaking effect. And I'm not sure whether that's because of a camera artifact or it's because of an auto-generated artifact.
Yeah, I think this is a very difficult problem. So, I think vision for humans is very good, right? It's very advanced, right? You look at something, you know what to do with it. When you are easy, we are very capable of
Mm,
navigating our own surroundings and recognizing people and objects and things like that.
mm,
But our visual system was not trained to discern what has been generated and what has been digitally manipulated and
mm.
so on.
Good point.
So we are
Right.
really good at physical vision. I'm not as sure as we are that good at digital vision. But
Mm,
nowadays, there is a lot of digital vision in play because we are all on screens all the time, right?
mm,
And a
mm.
lot of the information that we get about the world is coming through this medium.
Yes.
So, unfortunately, that is not something that we are great at. So,
Mm,
humans may not be able to tell, more than a random chance
mm.
whether something is real or something was, manipulated.
Yeah.
Yep. So,
I think also there's the sensor guys. You mentioned some of the bigger players like Adobe, but what about those that present the data to us? The YouTubes and the Vimeos and the other platforms that present that. Are they doing anything to try and help us discern reality from the fake?
yeah. So I think so YouTube is so they have to consider video watermarking or like other kinds of technologies
Mm,
that are applicable to long form content. So
mm,
that is another kind of problem, because you just now have this huge amount of data, right, that you want to now embed reliable signatures into and things like that. So
mm,
I'm sure it is on the way. But there are various different platforms that do add their own signature if you upload content to that platform.
mm-hmm.
And we have seen this through various apps, right? So there was this kind of Sora 2 app from OpenAI, and they would always have this kind of slightly visible, in their case, watermark, because of this kind of misinforming implications, right? So
So Sora
uh,
2 for everyone is an generating, auto-generating images or videos or
videos, yeah,
videos.
videos, yeah,
Okay, so
yeah.
they OpenAI deliberately declaring that something has been
Mhm.
auto-generated. So you can use it for
Yes.
fun over here, but don't use it to try and tr to fool us over here. Right.
Yeah, but the same technology can be, right? I mean, this one that they released as an app was
Mm,
supposed to just be used for, funs and giggles and so on. But
mm.
the same technology can be used to actually create misleading content, right? And
Yes.
so
Yes.
so that is the scary part, is that if you don't have this extra layer, and that is where I think this is not a problem of just technology, right? So this is a problem of coming up with policies. This is a problem of regulation, because we've always had technologies that can be used for nefarious activities.
Right.
This is definitely more powerful than a lot of the other technology that we have seen so far. So today's AI can do a lot. I think the damage can be much worse, and it can be very quick, right? We all saw that from the Grok AI example, where early in January, it was being used to undress people online, right? So if you have a photograph, and
Mm,
people were using the technology to create nude versions of those people.
right.
So I think
Yeah.
before the administrators intervened, there was already quite a few, I would say in millions, the
Mm.
number of images that had already been, attacked in some way. Attack is what I say, but like, edited in some way. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if you're a victim of that, it would be
Mhm.
quite distressing to have, to have that. And I guess, people who are in this spotlight, famous people or people that are well known, I guess in a way are particularly vulnerable to that type of attack. I mean, it's as with all technology, there is always the good and the bad, isn't there?
Mhm.
And as you say, this is particularly nefarious because it can do a lot of damage, I guess, quite easily. It's not that hard to do that type of thing.
Yes, yes. We no longer need Photoshop experts or like, people
Mm,
who know how these media technologies work, right? Now, everybody can just write a sentence, like, a prompt, an instruction,
mm,
and then
mm,
try to, create something that looks very realistic.
mm.
Yeah.
So, are you seeing any new policies coming out that, I mean, we're here in the US, but in Europe as well. Have you seen anything coming out which is trying to address that problem?
So, I think there is the some sort of dialogue regarding copyrights. So
Mm,
the number of copyright cases have definitely increased, since and we have heard about some of the high profile ones, such as between Stability AI and Mid-Journey, and there's like different kinds of lawsuits on OpenAI.
mm,
New York Times and OpenAI were having some sort of a legal conflict going on, and so on. So I think that has led to people thinking about what does copyright mean in the age
mm,
of AI, right? So I know there is the in Hollywood there is the Writers Guild that has done strikes and has also taken legal action against some of these companies and so on. So we are seeing some of that, but I think in terms of regulation, we are a little bit behind. Definitely much more behind than Europe, right? So, and this is not just for copyright, even for privacy, right?
Mm,
So Europe has a more robust privacy regulation, right? The GDPR,
mm,
which has guidelines such as, the day a person wants their data to be, not used by any model, these model developers need to provide a provision for that. Right. So
mm.
now that raises a bunch of different technical questions. It's like, how do you kind of delete a concept from a trained model? Right. So that's the area
Right.
of concept erasure, also called machine unlearning. And so those are all becoming really important topics now to
Mm,
research, right? And
mm,
develop techniques that allow you to do that
mm,
because of the regulation, right? So this is, the regulation has now incited that these are, important
mm.
things to look at and enable.
I've never
Whereas in
heard of that
US,
unlearning
yeah,
thing. So
yeah.
yeah, not being an expert in large language models, my philosophy, my approach to understanding large language models, you just keep throwing more data at it and telling it to tune, and just getting
Mhm.
bigger and bigger data sets. Um, and it kind of just has a will of its own almost. But you're now saying that we can intercede and kind of guide it a little bit, right, with the untraining. Hmm.
Yes. So I think we are still trying to develop kind of effective methods to unlearn
Hmm.
specific concepts without forgetting everything else that it has learned, right? So if I
Hmm.
want it to delete one specific thing, I don't want it to forget everything else because then the model is just useless and all the hours that you spend training, all the hours and resources that we spend training it are now wasted, right? So
Hmm.
so there is kind of like doing it in a balanced way where we are retaining the learning but still being able to remove certain concepts that are being represented in the model.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
yeah, I think in US there are a few states which have privacy acts and laws,
Hmm.
but not, I don't think they have been updated to incorporate the newer technology. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not surprised to hear you say those things that you just said, which is that Europe's taking the lead with regulations, and they seem to be unified across different countries and languages. The US is lagging behind, and it's taken up sort of patchwork between states. It's almost like Europe seems to be able to get their act together quicker as multiple countries than the US as a single country.
Yeah, but I think they are setting precedences. So there
Right.
is a recent Supreme Court ruling saying that, AI generated content cannot be legally copyrighted. So they
Ah,
are
right.
they
Okay.
are like, there's no like unified law or anything,
Hmm.
but I think they are thinking about it, right? And I think there is a balance between innovation and protection that I think is the key problem here, right? So
Yes.
it is a difficult problem to solve, but I think that the dialogue can be bigger. I mean, even if they are discussing it, I think it deserves a lot more time
Yeah,
and attention.
I think so
Yes, yes.
too. And that's because I think, well, here's my view. I think that's because we all feel it, right? I mean,
Mhm.
every single person that I've ever spoken to feels it when they see some content which is fake. It's jarring. You feel like you're being cheated, and lied to, and I think that way affects you emotionally. Like it's sort of somehow we have a very deep sense of wanting to know that something's genuine.
I
Where
think
do you
you
think
you
that
have
comes
hit,
from,
yeah,
Aparna?
you have hit a very kind of important point here, right? Because I don't know anybody who likes getting lied to, right?
No.
So I think there is this kind of human tendency to to go after the truth. It is not
Mm.
just for scientists. I think it
Mm.
is even, I think everybody has a mini scientist in them. So
Mm.
maybe it's that.
Well said.
So yeah, so I think everybody has this tendency to go after the truth, right? So
Yes.
um, whether you choose to, deliberately deceive someone at any point in your life or not, you don't want, some sort of deception at any level, right?
Mm.
Because that is very jarring, right? That is, we all like to be grounded in some way. And, this idea of believing something that is untrue is, extremely like it's contrary to our survival instincts, right? We want
Right.
to know if something is coming, we want to know, right?
Right.
That, and we want to know it like, in a grounded way. We want proof for it and things like
Yes.
that. So,
That's a very
yeah.
good point. I always like to, when I think about something that affects me emotionally, I always try to think about how it might have happened when I was in the jungle, right? In a tribe in the jungle, or, a troop of chimps or something. As you just said, that you want to know that that thing is a real threat over there versus
Yes.
versus it's somebody lying to you that it's a threat because you need to
No, and
know to
also,
react.
yeah, and also I think it's more also about like the consequences of the decisions, right? So if
Mm,
I'm making a decision, if something that is unreal is informing me and I'm making my decision based on that,
mm,
if I'm someone who is completely nonchalant about and doesn't care about their decisions, I think that person wouldn't care if something is real or fake or whatever, right? But if
right.
you are someone who does care about, the
Mm,
kind of decisions you make and the consequences of it,
yes.
then I think you would care about, if you're looking at something that is real or not. Yes.
Right, right. Interesting insight. I hadn't thought of it that way. I think, yes. So, I mean, you could make career decisions. You've obviously committed a lot of your life and energy to getting an education in a certain direction. You want to know that that's going to have a long-term future for you. So you would rely on truth, people telling you the truth for that. Good
Yeah,
point.
but even small decisions such as renting an apartment, right? So,
Mm,
say for example, you're looking at these online pictures, they all look great, and not always you're able to physically travel there and look
mm,
at the
mm,
property and things like that. And say you're making these decisions online and, you think that everything looks realistic, but then you sign this lease and now you're stuck because the apartment looks nothing like,
mm,
what was shown.
mm,
I give this example to students about dating apps, right? So I was like, oh, have you ever been
mm,
kind of, the person edited the picture heavily and you go
mm-hmm,
and meet the person and then they are nothing like that. And you
mm-hmm,
spent your days, of effort and time and
mm,
energy on this. So I think even in our day-to-day activities, right, it is extremely important,
mm,
but also for the bigger things, right? So who do we vote for, right? If I'm
mm,
consuming content to inform myself
mm,
and say that content is untrustworthy,
mm.
right? But it is changing my perception of things, and it is
Yes.
changing the kind of decisions I'm going to make in the future and so on. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, really important topic. I think to sum up that, I'm going to move on to something else that's of interest to both of us. To sum up, I think we have this battle going on between the generated misdirections and trying to keep things genuine. What I think I draw some faith from is the fact that people all want to see the truth and nobody wants to be lied to. And I think that's a very powerful force. And I think that will emerge. I don't think we'll get, I think we won't get the internet full of fake stuff. Nobody wants that. And I think that will have its day. But we'll see this constant battle going on. Um, Now, let's go to some of the other areas you're working in, which was the machine learning, AI vision stuff, which we're working on. So this is more not so much about auto generation, but more about deterministic. And by that, I mean you're looking at a scene and you're trying to figure something out, right?
Yes. So this is related to more recognition, right? So I think So the some of the projects that I'm working on, and one is with you on, is this kind of remote well-being, right? So the underlying research that is interesting here is that so machine learning has done really well with objective visual tasks, right? So
Mm,
you show an image to a model or a person, and they can objectively say whether there is a car in it or not. Right. So that is what we would call an objective visual task, where if you ask five people, the chances of you getting the same answers is really high, right?
mm,
So they
mm,
will all say yes or no, there is a car in the image or not. But there are more complex questions, right? More complex visual questions, such as, for example, do I trust this colleague enough to be collaborating with them on a project, right?
mm, mm,
Do I feel comfortable in this office environment, right? Is this kind of like a positive environment where everybody is collegial and collaborative and things like that, right? So
mm,
whenever we are talking about these kind of human-human interaction or human-computer interaction or human-robot interaction settings, there are more complex visual questions than just, is that like a car, or is this an object that is a
mm,
chair or a
mm,
table, and so on, right? So we wanted to kind of start thinking about some of those, some of the operational settings where these kinds of subjective visual tasks show up. And one
mm.
of them is this kind of well-being, right?
Yes,
So
yes,
well-being
yes,
determination.
yes.
So I want to be able to kind of, maybe get nudges and help if I'm looking like, oh, I'm super tired and dehydrated and things like that, right?
Mm,
A lot of the times you see that medical professionals, even though the whole online and telehealth system has gotten really good and they can implement it, but they will still ask you to come in person,
mm, mm.
right? And one of the reasons is because there is a lot that they can judge and discern just by looking at you, right?
Right.
And like, how good are you feeling, and like how, so
Mm,
so I think that is something that holds some value. So we started thinking that, okay, so the maybe we can have a vision technology that analyzes some of these kind of external appearances, and try to see if we have any level of reliable signal to evaluate and understand the well-being of a human, right? Whether it
mm,
is dehydration, stress, fatigue, things
mm.
like that. Yeah.
Fantastic. So this could be useful for example, right now we could have some kind of monitor that's running that would
Mhm.
tell you and tell me how I'm feeling that day. Maybe I haven't had enough coffees this morning, or maybe I didn't sleep well, or I should dehydrated, and I could have some sort of, I guess we're all trying to determine the action to take, right? So
Mhm.
I need to go and have a couple of glasses of water or some electrolytes or just go for a walk or maybe there's an indicator of some other more serious um, health issue that's emerging. I mean, certainly trying to catch something early is a great way to fight off a disease, right? So can we go that far with this technology?
Yes, and that is the intent, right? The
Mm,
intent is that at some point we'll be able to create these meaningful interventions, right? And we would kind of give it to them, before something bad really happens, right?
right.
So I think that is what the goal is.
Mm,
We want to be kind of getting to a point where we can easily detect, and in some cases also predict, right? Like what is
mm,
coming
mm.
next, so that we can then kind of issue good interventions, right? And in extreme cases, maybe alert some family members, or like, somebody from your close circle. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. How we have a keen interest in this in my company. That's why we're engaged in this research activity because we've been developing, camera systems for a long time. We see the opportunity um, to go and make this a commercial success as well as, I guess provide some real value to people. It might be as simple as, running software on the computer that we have right here, right? right? It really
Yes,
could
yes. So
be.
far, yeah, so far we are using that as itself. But
Mm,
you can also think about having like a specialized, camera device which has its own processor, and that really kind of does give you the power to do it on device, right? And where you don't have to transmit the data to another server, which can cause different privacy and security problems. So I
right.
think there's a lot that can be done in this space. Yeah.
Right, and I think just to illustrate to the audience the difference between doing it on device and not is that if you can do the processing on the device that is on the camera right there in front of you in your own home or wherever, you don't have to transmit the media back to the cloud. And I mean, how many data breaches have there been on nefarious acts of, getting access to people's data? There might be something sensitive in there that you don't want. You don't want a video in the
Yeah.
cloud of you, in front of the TV at night or whatever.
Mhm. Yeah, but it's also like, overall, companies would, it would benefit more from not like selling their data of their users to third party and things like that, right? So,
Yeah.
so if it is something that, they can keep it in-house, I think the customers or the users would probably trust that more than
Mm,
if they are sharing that data, because then it is very hard to trace as to who has it and what they are doing with it. So, yeah.
yeah. Yeah. And I think the other sort of point of interest is that we noticed that there's more and more people that are, I guess, home, working from home, but also maybe living alone at home, maybe getting older and living at home alone. And that I think that's expanding, and also just the costs of moving somebody from their home to the medical practitioners or to the hospital is enormous. That there's a driving force in cost and in sort of just the movement towards what I guess is telehealth. They call it this telehealth, where you can kind of get some kind of health support um, remotely where you actually are right now without having to make that journey. I guess you can't, as you said, you can't do everything, but we can certainly move towards that, and maybe a lot of really good services can be provided off the back of this technology to really help people.
Absolutely. Yes. I
Yeah.
think we need to start taking steps to get there. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So how did you let's change topics back to you again, Aparna. How did you get into this field and what are your qualifications? We didn't really cover off on that.
Yeah, so I think I started my undergraduate in computer science and engineering
Mm-hmm.
back at IIIT Delhi in India, and I liked it, but I wasn't like it didn't feel like there was a lot to it that was my calling or
Mm,
anything.
mm,
But I do remember taking this kind of image analysis course and suddenly I had this kind of renewed interest in like everything that I was doing, and
mm-hmm.
I do think one of the reasons was that I'm a very visual person, right? So I think writing some program and then looking at like what is the impact of
Mm-hmm.
it
Mm-hmm.
visually was definitely something that grabbed my interest in this area. And I took more and more courses in this field, and I think I had a specialization in image analysis and machine intelligence even as an undergrad. So which was pretty something that not every undergraduate
Yeah.
does. But
Mm,
I went kind of very deep while during those years I started doing research with some of my faculty members, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was
mm,
one of the most rewarding experiences of my undergraduate time, and that led me to think that, oh, this is something I can see myself doing long
mm,
term.
mm,
So I applied for a PhD at various places in the US, and I selected to go to University of Notre Dame,
mm,
where I got my PhD in computer science and engineering,
mm-hmm.
and I was a part of the computer vision research lab there. I graduated in 2020, and since then I have been a professor, and now I have a lab that then we try to kind of all together solve various problems in this field.
Yeah. Well, that's a great journey, and I guess being a specialist in an area like this is, I mean, you're in a hot field right now because not only is we talking about, the computers being able to generate images and do that, the determination, but what I've witnessed over the last 30 years is the power of cameras is going up and up. When I started in the field, we had VGA images, which is 360,000 pixels. That was the best we could do in a phone. Now I've heard that there's a 200 megapixel camera, and I think it's been out for a little while now too. And they're so much better too. The noise floor is lower, the power consumption is low. They're still just as small. So we really do have the ability to pull high quality image data and massive amounts of it. And I think that's also, there's these multiple things coming together. The AI software in the area that you're working in, the camera hardware, and I guess the third element is the processors, the neural network processors and the GPUs, which does the grunt work of turning an image into some form of meaning.
Yes, I think you're right that this is kind of all three pillars have seen like exponential growth,
Mm,
right? So, with respect to the camera technology, AI models, and then also the resources that we need to train these models, right? So the
mm,
GPUs keep getting better and better, and you can now ingest more data and train bigger models, and have these kind of generalists in some ways. Like
mm,
there's a term that is going around nowadays. It's called foundation models.
mm,
So you don't need to train these kind of separate models for each specific task. You can go and train a really huge foundation model
mm,
that is able to tackle various tasks,
mm,
all right, within a specific domain.
mm.
So I think all of this has been enabled by, what you just mentioned as these technologies.
So that
Yes.
foundation model, maybe you can explain that a little bit more, but there's also this thing called fine tuning, right? And from what I understand, you take a foundation model. So someone's done a lot of the work for you to create something which is a structure. And then you say, well, actually, I want it to do this task over here. So you fine tune it to do something very specific. Did I get that right?
Yes. So you can have,
Mm,
for a lot of different applications, we may not require to train, another large model. And even if we can, there might not be enough data in a specific area, right?
mm,
So it
mm,
depends on the domain.
mm,
So for example, medical images, like they're not as extensive in the availability of data as maybe real world scene images
mm,
that are just available, online.
mm,
So I think then how do you kind of train these models, right? So a lot of the times you can take the knowledge of a pre-trained general model, and then you can fine tune with a smaller set of more specialized data,
mm,
right? And then kind of, change a few things about what the model is supposed to do. And that should give us some more specialized, specific tool that can be
mm.
used for that application. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So we've talked about the present, we've talked about the past. What do you think's going to happen in the future in this area?
Oh, this is extremely difficult to answer. I mean,
Yeah.
past and present is easier to look at and analyze. So I don't think any of us have a crystal ball, right? And we all can speculate,
Mm.
based on what we know and what we observe.
Hmm.
Um, I
I think
think
you might
that.
have some good insights though, because of your specialization, right?
Yes, I do think that, this technology is going to help people to some extent,
Mm,
right?
mm,
In their tasks, or like helping them, maybe get away from some of the mundane tasks
mm,
that
hmm.
that they have to do as part of their, job or their daily life.
Yes.
Um, But I think there are also a lot of kind of consequences that are not so good that
Mm,
we need to be thinking about,
mm,
right? So the technology is only as good as, your usage of it.
mm,
So I think that is something that we as users have to be cognizant about. But more than that, I think we need some level of guidelines and,
mm,
even maybe regulations to ensure that, this is a technology that the human race can live and thrive with.
right.
So I think that is something that is very hard to kind of um, ignore, right?
Mm,
So I think this is we have seen so many cases of repercussions of using such technology in various fronts,
mm,
and I think that is something that is that is what I think needs to happen going forward.
mm,
I don't know if that will happen going
mm,
forward.
mm,
So I think these big models and they are going to plateau at some point, right? So there's only
mm,
so much capabilities that these models can add, right?
mm,
So I
mm,
think. I do think that the more interesting scenarios now are going to be, physical and spatial AI, where you have these kinds of agents and robots interacting with the real world environment,
mm.
right? So I think this kind of the information chatbots is was cool in the last 5 years, but I think in the next coming 5 years, that's where we are going to see the most amount of innovation is because how can we solve tasks now in real life, right?
Right.
Not just
So,
cognitive tasks.
what's
Yeah.
your opinion on full self-driving using cameras only, like Tesla's trying to do?
Yes. So, I mean, we all would love to have that, right? I mean, we all know it would be a useful technology, but it
Mm,
is an extremely hard problem to solve, as we
mm,
have already seen, right? There were a
mm,
lot of predictions that by, 2015 or 2020, there will be,
mm,
self-driving cars on,
mm-hmm,
all kinds of roads. But that's
mm,
not the case, right? We have
mm.
already crossed that line. And it is because it is an extremely difficult problem to solve, right?
Right.
I think the canonical version of the problem is maybe easy, right? Where you don't have events that happen out of the blue, out of distribution, and so on and so forth.
Mm,
But the human visual system, as we talked about, right, has
mm,
evolved, has been trained to be really good at
mm.
navigating these surroundings, making these split second decisions when an unidentified object just kind of flies in front of you, right?
Yes.
And it's very hard to kind of encode that level of visual intelligence in these models where they can just like use what they already know to then react to unseen
Right.
scenarios.
Right.
So yeah, we have to make them better at all these open set recognition
Yeah.
scenarios and things like
Yeah.
that. So I do
Well,
see it getting better, but I don't
I
know if it's
I
yeah.
was away last week in Las Vegas, and there's this thing called the Vegas Loop, which is
Mhm.
an underground tunnel done by the Boring Company, which has Teslas driving around the tunnel. And I thought, well, surely they're going to have full self-driving in there. No, every single car has a driver, and there's multiple people there as well, shuffling people back and forward. It was the opposite to automation. And I would have thought that my instincts would tell me that that's a very controlled environment. That would be the perfect place to get full self-driving to work. And it's a boring company, Elon Musk company. It's Tesla, an Elon Musk company. It's 2026 and there's no full self-driving there.
Yes, because I think this is something that we should probably learn from, right? Because there is a lot of kind of questions of responsibility,
Right.
right? Because
Right.
if something bad
Exactly.
happens, then it is, extremely detrimental to the person, right? So I
Mm,
think it is
mm,
very important to understand the responsible use of technology, even though I'm pretty sure that to a lot, to I think 60 to 70% of the times,
mm,
if you put it on auto driving mode, it's fine. But the
mm.
risk that you're taking for the rest
Yes.
is probably not worth
Yes.
doing
Yes. Yes.
I think so. I think that is something that this like, balancing trade-offs is the
It
problem.
is. I
Yeah.
think that's a very good way to say it, is the balancing trade-off. I mean, if there's the bad driver at night, tired, had some, some substances,
Mm.
they're not going to drive very well. And I think that the full self-driving would probably do a better job than that. But then you have a
Yes.
very good driver who's sharp and alert and on top of everything, and some surprising event occurs. He responds very quick, he or she responds very quickly, will do a better job than full self-driving. Um, so maybe we pick and choose when we use it. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. I think, when you have an environment that is pretty clean and constrained and things like that, right? Or you are really tired and you know that, the machine has better capabilities at this point than you. But I would
Mm,
still
mm.
say that, like, the best solution would be for the car and you to take a break. But,
Yeah,
because,
exactly.
this is an extremely dangerous thing to risk. But in
Yeah.
case you are not well and you want to get to the hospital, right? That is a scenario where I would say that, okay, please use it,
Right,
because
exactly.
you're talking about
Exactly.
like, lives. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we're running out of time, Aparna. Do you have anything you want to say or comments or questions or topics to cover?
So I think I would be very interested in knowing your view of the future, right? So
Mm.
I think you have also worked in this space for some time, and you're looking at more and more companies and startups coming up after this
Yes.
AI revolution. So tell me a little
Yes.
bit about what do you
Well, I
think
think the trend is going to
going to.
continue, Aparna. I think the three pillars that we talked about, which is the improving image quality coming directly from the cameras, which is pixels plus other factors, including multiple cameras and multiple sensors, and even going into multispectral stuff, right, where you're
Mhm.
going beyond the human vision to sense the world. I think we're going to see the continuation of the power of neural networks going onto the edge into our cell phones and doing that high level of processing power. And of course, the capability of the models, which is, I think that trajectory is not going to slow down. I think then what does that mean in terms of applications? Well, I think we're going to just see more and more intelligent applications. So, being able to assess complex scenes, like I was talking about the towers, tower cranes and construction sites, very complex scenes, which could be analyzed with AI and draw meaning from that. I think that's where we're going to go. Cameras are cheap, they're going to be abundant, they're going to be very easily deployed, and then that can be aggregated into, massive amounts of intelligence and draw meaning from that. I think that's where I think it's going to go. I don't think there's any slowdown. I think on the other side, we talked about the generative side. I kind of agree with you. There's this kind of battle going on. I think we're going to become more aware, and it's going to become a deeper understanding that we all have, that we now have to sort of do things a certain way, differently to how we used to. And that always happens with new technology. We have to learn how to use it, and that rolls out. And so we get smarter on how to overcome the people that try to mislead us. So that's probably a couple of things I've got there.
Yeah. Yep. Thank you. Thank you for sharing it. And
Thank
thank
you,
you
Aparna.
for, inviting me. And I had a great time talking about this because,
Mm,
it is
me too.
something that I am definitely interested in, but
Hmm.
having these some sort of like high level questions, and
Mm,
discussions from time to time is definitely
very
very
nice.
helpful.
Yeah, I've been
Yes.
chasing you down for a while, Aparna, and been looking forward to this. Um, so we have to end on the key question, and that is AI. Is it hype or help?
So I'm going to give, a more balanced answer. I
Mm,
think some of it is definitely hype,
hmm.
but I do think that generally it is going to be of more help.
Mm,
We are already seeing a lot of progress in, understanding medical images, right? In trying to understand various different contexts, right?
Mm,
Getting
mm,
information quickly and in a
mm,
summarized way. Now, of course, there are challenges there where, some of it is incorrect and sometimes it hallucinates, and we are all going to, work towards fixing some of those problems. But it can be helpful in doing some of these tasks. The hype is where, when people start saying it's perfect, right? Or it can solve all these extremely complex problems and it can replace people and things like that. So I think those are the ones that, like, like blanket predictions and, statements where everything is like amazing, right? Those are the ones that I think are more for on the hype side,
mm-hmm,
right? So we do think these models are extremely capable, right?
mm,
But do, am I going to say these models don't make mistakes? No, right? I
mm,
think we all
mm.
know that they do make mistakes. And even with our own interaction, you don't
Yeah,
get the same level of satisfaction with every response or every,
right.
output that you see and so on.
Yeah,
So I think that is something to be extremely aware of, right? Is that use it when it is helpful, and
right.
but you should also use your own kind of decision-making powers and things like that
Mm,
to know when it is wrong. And I
yeah,
think that is what I tell the students as well, right? That I'm not
mm,
saying like this is bad, but you need to have an understanding, right, to a level where you can discern when it is good or when it
yeah.
is bad. So yeah.
Well said, I think. And it's nice to end on that point about the human is still in the loop. We're not. I sometimes feel, and I didn't want to take the conversation in this direction at the end here, but I do sometimes feel that people think that we won't be doing anything and our lives will be in the hands of AI. I'm not seeing that. I'm seeing very much as humans evolving with this, and being a part of it and tied to it and just growing with it.
Yeah, I think there's this kind of like, augmentation that I foresee happening,
Right.
right? So maybe you can call it as like AI augmented humans or something
Mm-hmm.
like that, right?
Nice. Yes.
But I think that is what we are seeing right now, right? We've seen people using this in their workflow and so on,
Mm-hmm.
right? And getting more productive and getting better results and so on, right? So so
Yeah.
that's what we are seeing, and
Yeah.
I don't think that that human level expertise is not valuable anymore or something like that. I don't think that is the case
No.
because we are the ones guiding
Mm.
these
Yeah.
technologies, and
And
we get to
consuming it
decide.
and
Yeah,
creating
and
it.
consuming. Yes,
Yeah, yeah,
yes, yes.
exactly. All right, Aparna, this has been a real pleasure. Thank you. Thank you very much for joining us
Thank you
today.
so much. Thank you for the time and amazing discussion. Yes.
Thank you. You too. It was fun.
Okay.
Well, that was a fascinating discussion with Aparna, and we really got into some very interesting topics. AI, machine learning, particularly around vision systems, was an area where we have a common interest, and we were able to go quite deep into some interesting areas. One of the areas I think we're all aware of is the abundance of fake AI generated content. So, this is not just text, but it's now images and videos, and it's getting better and better. There's a famous, if you like, Will Smith video of him eating spaghetti, which is actually getting better and better over time. Now, this whole area of fake imaging isn't just static, it's dynamic and moving forward all the time. So, we have regulators coming in to try and combat this. We have the platforms trying to combat this, but we also have, the generators that are trying to create this content for getting likes, are motivated by creating some outrageous content. So there's this kind of war going on, or an arms race going on between these two opposing forces. Where do we think it's going to emerge? Well, listen to the video, you'll find out where we think it's going to go. But some of the interesting underlying technologies we got into, which was actually getting characteristics from the pixel itself actually on the camera, and understanding the noise behavior and the characteristics of those pixels, and having that as a fingerprint or a watermark to say that it was a real image generated by a real camera. An area I didn't know about, but is emerging now as a way to combat some of the fake content. We also talked about how machine learning and AI vision systems are going to be used into new areas. And one of the areas that Aparna and I are working on is in detecting a person's health, their emotion, and other factors as they sit in front of a camera, a regular camera, or even an advanced camera. And then we talked about where this is all going. And I think we agree that, complex understanding of the real world. And we talked about, full self-driving and where we think that's going, and where other capabilities are emerging through this technology. It really was a great discussion. I hope you enjoyed it. If you want to know more about Skillion, please follow the links in the description. I hope that helps, and thanks for watching.